I'm Beth Deshone with the Great Lakes Education Project, where we support quality educational options for all Michigan students. You're sitting in the front row, learning together with Michael Patrick Shiels.
I don't know if Lana Theis was one of those students that sat in the front row or in the back. And I don't know what it says about her or doesn't, but the state senator from Brighton, the Republican, is front and center right now on our AT&T line. She's the chair of the Senate Education and Career Readiness Committee, and we very much appreciate her time. The bell has rung, and we're ready to learn from you, Senator.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show this morning.
Were you in the front of the class or the middle? Where did you hide out?
Well, that's a funny question. In high school, I don't know that I was necessarily in the front, but in college, I absolutely was.
Well, there's a lot at stake there, and sometimes your own money is on the line, and so you tend to pay attention when that happens.
That did it for me.
I know we loved our summertime when we were in school, and we loved that last day of school and all that. Do you think that we should, like the superintendent is saying, have more school days next year to make up for the learning loss?
That's a fascinating question. He's been asking for that this whole time. I think there are an awful lot of countries that are doing an awful lot better at educating the children, and I think we absolutely need to do a better job with what we're doing. I don't know that more days is the answer to that. I think the issue right now, obviously, is that we've had our kids out of school. Some kids have been out of school almost the entire time that since last March, and that is we've dropped a generation of kids that we have to work very, very hard to get them back on track. And I think that's where our primary focus needs to be. And I think everybody needs to be on board pulling in that direction.
So you are suggesting maybe that it's more a matter of quality, not quantity?
Yes, frankly, I'm doing everything I've got to get my hands wrapped around the data to understand what works and what doesn't work in our our high school classrooms, and it's getting a hold of that data and being able to analyze it is an extraordinarily difficult thing for the legislature. It seems like they've worked very hard not to let us access that, at least not at a granular level.
It's very interesting because some of the advancements, I don't know if I should call them advancements necessarily, but the adjustments might be a better way to put it, that we've made into the online learning are some things that people had been advocating long before there was a pandemic. But do we go back? Do we go forward? We can't really quite even figure out where we are yet, can we?
Well, once again, that's something we're going to need the data. We need to know. We need to figure out who's doing what works, what doesn't work, for what kids, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some kids are excelling in this environment, but they are definitely the minority.
Is that measurable by testing, or what do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's benchmark testing, there's standardized testing. All of that will end up showing us what succeeds as long as we can get it at a granular level. Because in the current environment, one third grade classroom is doing one thing and another third grade classroom is doing something else entirely, and they can be in the exact same school district. And so some of the kids are excelling and some of the kids aren't, and it's extraordinarily frustrating for me. I'm trying to we need to get our kids past this. We need to what we're doing with COVID right now is a simple fact. And okay, so there's the fact. It's no longer an excuse. We have to help our kids. We have to get them back on track, and we have to do it as soon as possible.
Doesn't that lead us back to the classic debate between a Common Core and local control?
I don't know that that's necessarily the debate, particularly that we're in the environment we're in right now. I have my significant struggles with Common Core. My primary struggles with making sure that we're teaching the kids in the best possible way, but furthermore, that we're teaching them accurate information. And that it seems to me that we currently have an agenda and the curriculum that we're providing for our kids, and I don't want that. So I'm working very hard to make sure that what we're providing for our kids is correct information, that it's not an agenda, and that our children are able to be functioning members of society that recognize what an incredible opportunity this country is. We've provided more opportunities to more people than the history of the world has provided to their people. So we need to wrap our arms around that and move forward.
The governor and Director Hertel lifted the ban on contact sports a little bit earlier than they had originally anticipated. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was glad to hear it. It's kind of twofold, right? I'm super excited to get the kids back. I've been pushing really, really hard. I think that's necessary for their physical and mental health. They are among the lowest risk group of people in the United States when you're looking at who's in the most danger. COVID is absolutely a danger. I don't want to demean that in any way, shape, or form. It's absolutely a danger. But beyond that, what other dangers are there? And anxiety, stress, suicide is all up in areas we've never, ever seen it before, at a level we've never, ever seen it before. So we need to do everything we can to protect the kids, to help them get back to normal life. And this is one of the things that does that. This, for many of these kids, this was their motivation for being at school. This was their motivation for getting good grades. And for many families, this was their college plan. They don't have the wherewithal to pay to put them through. These kids were worthy of a scholarship. They've been doing these sports since they were 2 or 3 or maybe 4. And parents have been very, very invested in doing that, and some of these kids are really, really good, and their opportunities should be nationwide. It's not just the state. When you go for a college scholarship, you might be heading off to a completely different state, but if your state is more restrictive than all of the rest of the states, then your children are losing the opportunities, and they're no longer on a level playing field with the rest of the kids.
Looks like the Senate is going to send a $3.5 billion COVID plan to the governor's desk that the House already passed and dare her not to sign it. Is that the plan?
You would need to speak with the leadership on that. I haven't had a chance. They just passed it out yesterday. I haven't had a chance to dig through the details on what they're looking at.
They want her to give up some of the control, and she's not likely to do that, I suppose. So that'll be interesting to see for sure. And speaking of control, blocking the governor's nominees for the same reason, for the effort, as I understand it, to remind her that there should be some shared power in the state leadership, not a monarchy. Is that the point also being tried to made there?
So our U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, guarantees the states a Republican form of government. And what that means is there are branches of government, and the legislature creates the laws, the governor executes the laws, the judges judge with respect to the laws. So it's a pretty simple equation, but we haven't seen that equation since COVID started. So we are desperate to be able to be the voices of our people. Our people aren't being heard, and there was never intended to be a unilateral government, never intended to be a monarchy. So we need to do everything we possibly can to get the balance of power back in place. And this is too much for any one person to be making the decisions about. That's what our founding fathers thought, and that's what we think.
Best case scenario is what?
That we restore the balance of power. The legislature needs to be an active voice, and everything we hear from the governor is they need to sit down and listen to me tell them how it's going to be, and that's considered bipartisanship. That's not bipartisanship. Bipartisanship is the legislature being an active voice and being able to advocate for their constituents, and then we move the legislation to her desk, and she signs the legislation. But to your point, she has actively said that she's not going to reduce her power, which I can't even imagine that our citizens wouldn't find that incredibly offensive, because she's acting as a monarch right now, to your point.
Lana Theis, State Senator, Republican from Brighton. Thank you for the lively chat. She's chair of the Senate Education and Career Readiness Committee with Michael Patrick Shiels.